Hi, Scott.
Hey, good morning, Ray. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me everything about ponds.
We're going to need about 3 or 4 days. How much video do you have?
All right, what part do you want to start with?
I guess the overall aspect of what do ponds do. Ponds
Right.
are there for two main reasons. Number one, to slow the flow of water, which in turn decreases erosion and sedimentation. Then also to filter the nutrients and the minerals and all the yucky stuff that comes off of our impervious surfaces into the ponds. It treats that before it gets into our waterways. That's the main reasons that we have these guys.
And what's the difference between a man-made pond and a natural pond?
What we're calling a man-made pond is a kind of a oversimplification of an actual engineered stormwater pond. So actually a certified or a professional engineer will actually draw up plans that the developer has to submit to the municipality in order to get the building permit. So rather than just, a lot of people think you just go dig a hole, and all that does is create a pond. It's also not a truly permitted stormwater pond. So that's the difference between, something that's actually built compared to just a farm pond that was there originally.
I'm an association. I call you. I want you to check out my pond. What's the first thing that's going to happen? What are you going to do first?
I always ask, what are your objectives with your pond? And then also, are there any current issues that are, that need to be looked into?
When you walk up to the pond, what do you see? What are you looking for?
We're looking for, does the pond look pretty? Number one, we do a lot of aesthetic work here on the coast as well as back up in the Piedmont, and then we also look into make sure that the pond's working correctly. So is it draining water appropriately? Is there cracks in the outlet control structure? Is there weeds everywhere? A lot of different things, man. It's actually kind of complex.
How long does it take you to check out a pond?
Depends on the size, but generally to do an actual maintenance service on a pond, if we're doing some treatments, picking up trash, taking pictures, doing reports, I don't know, I'd say 30 minutes per acre would be a rough estimate.
So you get to a pond and it looks great. What are some of the hidden factors that people may not know about?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of the things that people don't see are actually the issues that can cost the most amount of money. I've seen ponds overflow because a Gatorade bottle got stuck in the primary outflow for the pond, and then caused erosion and cost the community thousands of dollars, just from one single Gatorade bottle. So there are a lot of underlying issues that a lot of people won't actually see unless they've done this for a long time.
Does age play a factor in pond maintenance?
Yes, for sure. Most ponds, after they're built, it will usually take 2 to 3 years to become eutrophic, which is a fancy limnology term saying that the pond is very rich in nutrients, and that's when they usually become more problematic. So in general, the older the pond, the more problematic it is, like anything else.
It's interesting that the nutrients would cause a problem with the pond. What are some of those factors?
Again, one of the sole purposes of the pond is to make sure that it does remove these nutrients before they get into our waterways. Here on the coast of North and South Carolina, our economy thrives off our waterways. I mean, water is everything for us here. So we want to get rid of those guys. If you think about road debris, just if you think about going down your street, the stuff coming off your tires, the minuscule amounts of petroleum, nitrates and phosphates from fertilizer, all this stuff compounded can actually get into the pond, and it causes issues, but that's good because it's better to cause issues in these stormwater ponds than it is too in our waterways.
So you're involved a lot with chemistry?
Yeah. I mean, not more so. Chemistry is kind of a macro aspect of what I do. I'm more so involved in the overall functionality of these stormwater processes rather than just on a macro level as far as the chemistry.
What's the most expensive issues with ponds that need to be?
Dredging, probably. Yeah, dredging. We get a lot of questions about dredging. In general, a good estimate on dredging is $60 to $100 per cubic yard, and that's coming off some data that was gathered by Clemson University over a course of I think 6 years, all over the coast of South Carolina.
Do they test the dredging material when it comes out? Is that considered a hazardous material, or?
It is, yeah. And another good question. That actually determines a lot of times the cost, because a lot of times you'll have to go to a different landfill to get rid of the spoil, or you might have to go out of cross county lines or whatever, and there's permitting fees and travel fees. So yeah, that actually is a big aspect of it.
Your job to me seems terrific, being outside in the sun and enjoying nature while you're working. What are some things that people don't realize about your job?
I do have the coolest job in the world. You're totally correct about that. We joke a lot about my dog walking around the ponds with me. I do love my job. But it also, when it's August and it's 97 degrees on the coast of South Carolina and you're walking around with a 30-pound backpack on your back, spraying and killing algae, that makes for a long day.
What's the biggest gator you've ever seen?
Man, I get asked that a lot, and not to, I don't want to be the guy that says, it's 15 feet long. I mean, probably like 10, an actual legit 10-footer.
What else in nature causes problems with ponds?
Birds, honestly, are probably one of the bigger issues. A bird, say an ibis can land in a pond that has duckweed. It's a floating plant material on the water surface. It can land there, takes off, flies in another pond. Duckweed can actually reproduce 3 times a day. So one plant, you've got 3 plants by the end of the day. You can extrapolate that, and you're looking at thousands or millions of plants in a week or two. So that one bird could be a very costly issue for a homeowner or a HOA.
What role do those fountains play? Are they just for aesthetics, or do they have another purpose?
Man, that's a good question to get people in my industry to start fights. If you want to have a good MMA brawl, that's a good question. In my opinion, and the science backs it up, all fountains basically do are aesthetics. They do oxygenate the water, but they're only oxygenating the upper water column, which is already oxygenated due to photosynthesis occurring from sunlight penetration. So in theory, there's really no point in oxygenating an already oxygenated aspect of the pond, compared to diffused aeration systems, which are actually inserting compressed air or diffused air from the very bottom of the water column all the way up through the top, which actually oxygenates the entire body of water. But they're pretty, so if people like them because they're pretty, we're happy to put them in for you. They're also costly, to be quite honest. They're costly, and they are usually a little bit of a repair headache.
What kind of other animals cause problems with ponds besides birds and some fish?
Any of your varmint species, beavers, muskrats, otters. Beavers will dam up your outlet control structures. Muskrats will dig holes in your shoreline. Otters can decimate your fish population. There are a lot of issues as regards to the varmints that like to live in the waterways here.
Are there a lot of governmental regulations as far as ponds go?
Yeah, man, that's the reason I've got a job, honestly. It's differing in differing areas, depending under what MS4 category you're covered under, in regards to where you're at, whether it's North or South Carolina, and what part of North or South Carolina. So, yeah, long story short, yes, there are plenty of regulations. They're set up to ensure that these bodies of water or these stormwater control measures are working properly and doing what they're supposed to do.
What's your overall advice for associations in regard to their ponds?
Awesome question. Number one, before you transition, have an independent study done. No matter what. That's such an important aspect. I've made a lot of money over the years, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, where people that just didn't have the know-how to get their ponds inspected. A developer wants to get out of there as cheap as possible, right? He does not want to spend any more money than he has to. He, gives a sales pitch to the community. Community signs off on the documents. The next thing you know, they're getting inspected a year down the road, and now that they're actually under their ownership, and they're failing. So they're paying thousands of dollars to get them fixed. So number one, just make sure that you get them inspected before. Doesn't have to be a professional engineer. It can be a pond guy. It can be me. It can be any of the other pond guys. So just get a good independent overall inspection of each stormwater pond or pond in general before you take over ownership.
Is there a common construction defect you see that causes the most problems?
Yeah, erosion on the coast, for sure. The soils are very bad here, which we really don't have soil. We have sand for the most part. A lot of times the contractors will get some type of crop established in regards to just some type of grass, and then 2 or 3 years later there's huge eroded rills in the slopes just where they've not done well, or where they've had wind wave erosion on the shoreline where the water meets the shoreline, where they weren't protected, there weren't wetland buffers put in, a number of a number of things where the developer didn't, not necessarily didn't do what it was supposed to, just didn't really go the extra mile to do what would be good for the community down the road.
Explain what a buffer is and what is the purpose of it.
A buffer, in general, a buffer is just something that separates one from another, right? A buffer in a pond is just simply something that will separate the water from the shoreline. So it can be a bulkhead, which we see very commonly. It can be, my specialty is the core logs and wetland plants. So it can be like we consider that a biological bulkhead. Benefits the owners because it's cheaper, benefits the wildlife. It's just a really good way to do it. But yeah, any type of buffer is better than nothing.
Can we see your dog? Is your dog there?
Come on, there you go. Say hi.
And your dog's with you most of the day?
Yeah. This is number 2 in Carolina Pond and Stormwater. This is number 2.
And does the dog perform any kind of job related service?
You've seen her pick up golf balls, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much as good as she can do.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Ray. Have a good day, man.